What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you clicked on this video, then maybe you feel the same way about modern fighting games as I do. I feel like overall, from a gameplay perspective, they just don't handle the way they used to. It's like driving a new car, but this one's really stiff. The turning feels off, the acceleration feels weird. Well, at least that's the best analogy I can come up with at the moment. So today we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into Mortal Kombat 1's gameplay, and why, to me at least, the gameplay feels really bulky. And don't get me wrong, I feel like at this stage in the game, they did balance it pretty well, but to me it doesn't stop the fact that the core mechanics are clunky. I got plenty of examples from previous fights that I've recorded, and I figured I would just show a handful in this video. So I figured this would give me a good opportunity to air out my own grievances, and see if anybody else watching feels the same way. Whether you agree with every point I'm about to make, or totally disagree with every point that I make, let me know down in the comments. Maybe there's certain factors I'm not considering, or maybe I'm being spot on with my analysis. You guys decide. And before we get started, let me just say that I'm not a pro by the definition, but in Mortal Kombat 1, if I play throughout the entire season, I always hit God rank. Not Elder God, but pretty close. So I wouldn't consider myself to be a slouch. At the same time, I don't want to discredit my history too much, because I was formerly ranked 14th on PS3 on MK vs DC Universe, with a pretty impressive 7-to-1 win-loss ratio, actually a little more. And this is back in a game where they weren't patching glitches like the Flash's infinite combo or Superman's infinite ground and pound. And if you watch any of my content, you know that I basically only use Sub-Zero exclusively. Yes, I am quite the fanboy. I even kept up with guys like RealMkTomBrady back in the day. Actually, I think at the time that I took this photo, he was ranked either 7th or 8th, which was just on the cutoff of this picture. Unfortunately, I was too much of a caveman to realize I could take screenshots on my PS3, so this was the best I had. Shout out to MK1, by the way. Regardless of what his critics say about him, I feel like he has Mortal Kombat's best interests at heart, and guys like me and him go back to the original games on Sega Genesis and Super NES. So if you're an older gamer too, you may resonate with this video a lot more. Oh, and just a quick mention, I was formerly ranked 5th on MK9 on PS3. The only problem with that ranking system was that it wasn't based on a win-loss ratio or fight points. It was based solely on your number of wins. And I was playing that game like a crackhead. Not for nothing though, I almost had, again, another 7-to-1 win-loss ratio by the time I stopped playing. But I digress. Let's get into the grievances on this modern Mortal Kombat take, and my reasoning behind each of my complaints. And hopefully this video will inspire you to go back to the older Mortal Kombats and maybe just play them for nostalgia. And if I have any younger viewers watching, if you haven't played the older titles, you guys do not know what you're missing. If you can get your hands on a copy of MK9, please do. I would love to hear how you guys feel after playing a game like MK9 and then coming back to MK1. I would love to know if the feel of the games was that much different to you guys too. So let's start with something small that kind of annoys me from time to time. And it's the sheer length of some of these combos in this game. This combo here is 14 seconds long, and that doesn't include a fatal blow, and I could have tweaked this combo a little bit to make it even longer. And for 25 hits, it feels like you should do even more damage than that. Don't get me wrong, I'm satisfied with like 43%, but at 25 hits, do the math, that's less than 2% per attack. And this is where I talk about the feel of the game, and in this instance, it feels like your hits don't actually hurt the opponent. When you play an older Mortal Kombat, the combos were a little bit more simplistic, but the attacks actually felt like they were bone-crushing. But let's move on to another aspect of this game that I always thought was clunky. Now I want you to take a look at this attack, and I'm going to slow it down real slow. Now notice here, where the attack animation begins, I'm either directly above or right on the other side of my opponent, where I'm supposed to be when I put in that punch command. Now in older games, I feel like your character used to immediately turn the other way, and in this game it feels like there's a delay with that. I remember in games like MK9, you could do a jump attack into a combo and it was seamless. Your combos would flow like water. And let's look at this example where I actually turn and connect with the guy, but notice the time gap in between the aerial attack and then my first attack going into my combo. Now granted, Sub-Zero's back 2 does have a slow startup, but what I mean is it feels like there's a little bit of a bulky period when I first do that jump attack right before I hit the back 2. The transition from those two attacks just feels a little more stiff than the old games. And in a fighting game, timing is everything, and it's got nothing to do with the connection. I'm always running on an Ethernet cable with high-speed internet. You can feel how awkward these mechanics are offline as well. So now let's talk about the delay mechanic, and the lack of variation that you have with it. So my opponent here catches me in a combo, and then I go to get up without a delay, and the fastest thing I can throw out is a down 1. And the animation frame barely gets going before I get hit again. So I say, okay, the next time he knocks me down, I'm gonna delay it. This is where I have a problem. The delay is only good for a limited time, and you automatically stand each and every time after the same amount of frames run their course. So my thing would be like, why didn't they make it so that you can have a shorter delay or a longer delay depending on how long you hold the button? Obviously to a time limit maximum, of course. But that lack of variation means that your aggressive opponent is going to know that you're getting up at one point or another point, with no variables in between. But Auroros, why don't you just armor out? Yeah, we'll get into that shortly. So this next clip was in the same match, and after completing a combo, I really just wanted to create some space between us. So you can see I did a backdash, and thank God I didn't jump. In my opinion, these backdashes are way too short, and it allows aggressive players to keep you trapped for extended amounts of time in some situations with certain combos that'll drive you nuts. But even this basic attack from Shao Kahn is jailing you, and because of that, I feel like my feet are glued to the ground, and I'm going to be forced into another guessing type of situation. And this is where I always tell people that the game feels less like it's skill-based and more like they threw dice into it. Because there's so many 50-50 scenarios that should be able to be avoided if you know when to get away with the proper techniques. But the techniques don't exist unless you're using someone like, say, the Scorpion cameo, but there's really no characters with their own viable mobility, maybe except for Nitara. Speaking of frame trappings and 50-50s, check out this next clip. This is a prime example of why I say that this game favors the button-mashing aggressor. So I successfully blocked this combo, which ends in a special move, in which a large majority of the punishable frames are cancelled by the Farrah cameo, who has an insanely quick 50-50. Again, we're playing a dice game. And even if I successfully block correctly, the Farrah cameo is barely punishable. But I just feel like there's way too many examples out there of your character being frame trapped, taking chip damage, all the while you're successfully blocking everything. And the only way that you can answer back is to armor it? So I have to spend meter to stop your endless aggression? You don't have to face the consequences for just chasing me around the whole game? Without a second thought as to how you're going to set up an actual successful hit? Here's another example of how you can cancel a special move into a cameo. And if this was a game without a cameo system, you would basically be saying, hey, how did you cancel that special move into an additional special move? In my opinion, once you do a special move, if I successfully block or counter it, you should be fully punished. Here's another clip from that same match. So I'm doing Sub-Zero's dive kick, and I figured I would try one of his basic strings with a slightly higher startup frame, that being his mid attack, but they can't connect. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like more basic strings should be able to connect. And again, I feel like it goes back to mobility and freedom of movement with your characters, not to mention the longer startup frames in the new game, versus something you would see in a game like MK9. Now here's one of the few moves in the game that feels like it came out of an older Mortal Kombat game, and that would be specifically Sub-Zero's Air Ice clone, which I believe is only a 4-frame startup. Why it would be about half of the startup as the ground version is beyond me. I was able to put this command in seamlessly at the exact moment that the fan was about to hit me, and I just wish that the rest of the game felt like this. And as a side note, if you can see, I was on the brink of death, and I was hanging on for dear life, and this dude was pissed. I'm not trying to gloat though, that was a good game. So here's some more frame trapping nonsense. It sucks when you want to just do a simple down one to keep the pressure off of you, and you can't do it. Now check this situation out. I'm going to pause this right here, and I'm going to flip back and forth for a few frames. Now I'm going to show you guys a similar situation after this one, where he was caught by the ice clone, and the ice clone was alive for basically the exact amount of frames. So from the looks of this one, it's almost as if the game had registered that I was hit before his sword ever touched me, but his body should have touched the clone and froze him. And the ice clone only would have disappeared that fast if a hit was registered, because the clone immediately breaks when that happens. Just some more janky stuff with the game. Here's the other clip where he tried to do something similar. And I think the only difference here was I was too far away for his sword to touch me. But I'm pretty sure if I was any closer, I would have had the same situation that I did in the previous clip. And in this clip, I just wanted to show, like, I know how to make a good read. Despite that, I feel like making a read in these games takes way too much preparation beforehand. Whereas an older game like MK9, you would depend more on your reflexes, because it feels like just the simple act of jumping into the air takes longer, almost like it has its own startup frames. Actually, I wonder if it does. Somebody let me know in the comments if I'm crazy or if I'm making sense on that. So this clip just brings me to the issue of armored wake-ups in general. And even though this went in my favor, I feel bad for the guy. My question is, why is it that basically every character, as far as I'm aware, only has one armored wake-up? That seems very one-dimensional to me. And in the case of this poor Baraka player, I know that his wake up attack puts him at exactly a jump length in front of me. So by simply jumping backwards, I'm able to do a full combo on him and not even block the attack for chip damage. It's way too predictable, and the same thing goes for Sub-Zero's slide. All you would have to do is down block and punish me. And then it simply comes down to that 50-50 mind game. Is he going to block or is he going to move? And it might discourage you from actually using it when you want to. I feel like there should have been way more variation with the wake-up abilities, irrespective of your cameo. Now I know the cameos had wake-up abilities too, but most of them didn't seem to cover a lot of ground, and they seem kind of pointless to use. Not to mention, I've been in certain situations where I use certain cameos with invulnerability, only to find that the invulnerability on me only lasts like, 2 frames? So it is extremely risky and extremely situational, and it could end with you getting punished again. Maybe after you already took a 25 hit combo for about 40%. Then you might have to wait another 10 to 15 seconds to even fight back. Now this little clip was interesting, and because your down 1 is basically the fastest attack you can use, when you're in a tight spot and you're vying for control, sometimes you wind up in a down 1 poke war, which just looks stupid, and it's something I feel that I saw and used a lot less in the older games, because there were better alternatives. Most moves generally came out a lot faster in the older games, so you were more likely to use them and mix it up a little more than just using a down 1. This clip is hilarious, and it goes back to my primal instinct as an older video game player. Thinking in my primal ways, I wanted to immediately get up and counter this guy. And you can see on the screen it says get up reversal. So I'm clearly making a read as I'm getting up. I know that this guy is jumping into me. I'm about to react accordingly, only for my get up reversal to get countered. And I feel like none of this would fly in the older games because you would have got up so much faster. Even if this guy timed it right, you just wouldn't have been allowed to be that aggressive. This next clip is just showing off that lackluster backdash and the overall lack of mobility even when it comes to fighting back. Now I know if it was the case for a character like Ashra or Shao Kahn with their weapons, they would have easily hit the target. But even so, that overall stiffness and lack of mobility is something that I can just feel in this game after playing the older titles. And at my core, I still try to play this like it's an older game, because I feel like it's ingrained in me to use my reflexes over trying to worry about frame traps and slow combos that feel like I could check all my emails and text messages and then come back and still play the same match. Oh, and one last example for this video. Here's another jumping overhead attack that failed miserably, and my opponent wasn't even ducking. I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me, and it drives me nuts. But I'm gonna stop the examples there. And again, I hope this video might have motivated you to go back and play some more nostalgic titles like MK9, just to see if you can notice or feel a difference in the gameplay. So if this video was informative to you at all, or gave you a perspective that made you think twice about the game, throw me a like or a comment. And if you really want to show me some love, hit that subscribe button. And if you like anything related to fitness, gaming, hobbies, or motivational speeches, check out the rest of my channel, because life isn't one-dimensional, and neither is my content. So until next time, love your life, stay motivated, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.